Good evening, everybody. How are we doing tonight?
Good.
Excellent. How many of you in this room, let me see a show of hands, how many of you have heard of stem cell research? Everybody. Excellent. So many of you may have also heard of the ethical and political issues with this type of research as well. In 2009, Bernard and Parham from the Department of Medicine in San Francisco, California, developed an article within the program of medical ethics, which provides information on why stem cell research is controversial. The ethical debate is that there are some religious concerns as to whether or not stem cell research is destroying human lives. The political debate is also causing problems, whether or not stem cell research is ethical or not, and it's being used in the agenda of various political entities to gain support for their party. In 2019, Igwezabal and colleagues from various stem cell research teams expanded a journal published in the Human Reproductive Organ Medical Journal that stem cell research is currently being used for treatment of diseases such as diabetes, macular degeneration, spinal cord injuries, Parkinson's disease, and heart disease. First and foremost, let's take a look at how stem cell research is beneficial, and then we'll also take a look at the ethical points of view so that we can weigh the balance and decide for ourselves whether we're for stem cell research or against it, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Currently, they are working on growing organs, in addition to the chronic diseases that we just discussed by Igwezabal and colleagues. I'd like you to think about how many people are awaiting organ donations out there, and they have to wait for a person to die to be able to get an organ, a heart, a lung. Imagine if you could take the research we're doing and give them a heart or a lung without waiting for somebody else to die. All those years you're sitting there waiting. So in 2014, Asteria's Biotherapeutics started trials on spinal cord injury patients, and the results of their studies yielded no relevant side effects to their studies. And they had good tolerance to the treatment, they had improved neuronal growth and improved bodily functions. So think about how difficult it must be for a spinal cord injury patient sitting in a room, staring out the window, watching all the kids play, knowing they'll never ever walk again. Now imagine we have the technology to fix it. Shouldn't we try? There's newly developing research. Zach Rzuski and colleagues from the Department of Experimental Surgery and Biomaterials Research expand on the future of stem cell research in an article from 2019 in the Stem Cell Research and Therapy Journal. So currently, researchers are looking into using cryotechnology to freeze umbilical cords. So a baby's born, they take the umbilical cord, they freeze it, so that later in life, that person that was born, they can take the stem cells from that umbilical cord and use those to improve on some sort of life-threatening disease that they may develop later in life. They're also looking into using stem cells in dentistry. So imagine you're out, you have an accident, you knock a tooth out. What do? You go to the dentist and they put a fake tooth in, or they implant. Well, now imagine with stem cell research, they could take some of those stem cells and put it into your bone and your gums and regrow your own tooth. And then you don't have to worry about going back every 10 years to have another fake tooth put in. And another area that they're also working on is ligament tendon restoration, which is of particular interest to me because I tore my ACL in high school. So imagine if athletes' careers didn't have to end just because they had an injury. And at the same time, they don't have to live in pain the rest of their life from arthritis. And stem cell research has the capabilities of doing so many things for our lives. Now let's talk about some of the ethical issues by Bernard and Parham. Controversy remains around when human personhood actually begins. Stem cells are taken from oocytes and embryos. The fact that embryos have the potential to become human beings is undisputed. However, scientists created the embryos for the specific purpose of research. And the destruction of the embryos happens when the embryo is just a ball of cells. It's not some little tiny human being that's growing inside of a uterus. And here, I'd like to show you just an example. At what point during development are stem cells extracted? So a zygote at the beginning is an egg, it's a female egg. A blastocyst is that fertilized egg. Now, this point is when they actually take the embryonic stem cells out. So it never even makes it to a place where it could develop to be a human being. So it's therefore not at conception at that point, because if you just leave it, it's not going to grow into anything. And then after that, of course, that's post-implantation to a uterus where it starts forming and then becomes a late embryo, an actual fetus, and then eventually it's born and becomes an adult. So embryos are merely cells dividing and differentiating into different cell types without initially having the environment needed to grow into a human being. Pro-life supporters have supported stem cell research using frozen embryos, such as those that are used in infertility treatments. So a woman goes to the doctor, she has stem cells, she has her eggs taken and they were fertilized, and then they take the fertilized eggs and put it into the woman. Well, the ones that aren't put into the woman, what happens to them? Eventually they either use them for research or they destroy them. So pro-life supporters, why not use them so that we can better the lives of everybody? So knowing a little bit more about how stem cell research works and what it's being used for is definitely appealing for our future in science. It's just lacking some of the vital support that it needs and spawns from a general lack of understanding from the community, the public, on what it is that they're doing. And political parties take that and they twist it a little bit. And it's one side's pro-life, the other side's, with abortion and everything else. So it makes it hard to decide where that line is. So I just wanted to explain a little better as to where that line is. So stem cell research uses embryos. They're merely a ball of cells that can't develop into anything until they become in the uterus. There are also alternative methods to this, using discarded frozen embryos, such as I had just stated. And then also Dresser, who was a professor of law and ethics at Washington University in St. Louis, explains in her 2010 article in the Journal of American Society of Law, Medicine, and Ethics that there are political issues as well, such as if the stem cell research becomes a major point with a political party, then its fate could be determined more by politics than by the actual research done in science. This makes it vital to separate politics and medicine in this instance. People need to make sure that they don't just watch television and listen to what they have to say. They need to research it and figure out what they're actually doing. Stem cell research could be the difference between some of us ever walking again if we get into a car accident, or getting our eyesight back as we get older, or even being able to get an organ transplant if one of our organs fails. Why shouldn't we support it? Thank you.